My girlfriend's family told her to leave me for a real man. Now she's watching me build the future they never thought I could. I always knew Bianca's family didn't like me. I wasn't blind. They never said it outright. No, they were too refined for that. But the looks, the dismissive smiles, the way they always steered conversations towards successful men in their circle, it was obvious. At first, I thought Bianca was different, that she saw past their world of old money, golf club politics, and status over everything mentality. We had been together for 4 years, since college. Back then, I was just a broke guy with big dreams, hustling through computer science classes and building a startup on fumes. She told me none of that mattered. Turns out, it mattered a lot. The beginning of the end started at a lavish dinner at her parents' estate. One of those absurdly excessive gatherings where people wear watches worth more than a car and drink wine from bottles that have their own security detail. Bianca had insisted I come, saying it was just family. But the moment I stepped in, I realized it was anything but. Her father's business associates were there, along with their sons, men who had already made it in finance, law, real estate. The conversation flowed effortlessly between investment strategies and European vacations. I, still grinding on my startup, barely had a place at the table. It didn't take long before the targeted attacks started, disguised as casual conversation. "So still working on that little tech project?" Bianca's father asked, swirling his whiskey. "Startup," I corrected. "We're in early development, but we're making progress." One of his friends chuckled. "Tech is volatile. You sure it's a wise investment of time? Maybe a backup plan wouldn't hurt." I saw Bianca shift uncomfortably. She wasn't defending me. That was new. Then came Adrian. Her mother introduced him like he was some long-lost prince. Corporate lawyer, Ivy League, wealthy family, perfect teeth, a living LinkedIn profile. And for some reason, Bianca's mother was very insistent that he sit next to Bianca. The conversation kept steering toward stability, secure careers, proven success. I realized then that this wasn't just a family dinner. This was an audition. They were showing Bianca her options, real men with real futures, not a guy still struggling to make his first big break. I barely made it through the night. But the worst part wasn't the subtle jabs or the orchestrated comparison. It was Bianca. She didn't say a word in my defense. A week later, I got the talk. She didn't drag it out. Just sat across from me in my tiny apartment, the same one she used to say felt cozy, but now probably looked pathetic compared to the mansions she'd been paraded through. "I love you, but I need stability," she said, carefully rehearsed. "I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. My family, they made me realize I need someone who's already there. Someone like Adrian. I could have fought, could have begged, but something in me snapped. I just nodded. All right. That's all I said." She looked surprised, like she expected resistance, but I had none left to give. 2 days later, she hard-launched her new relationship on social media, matching outfits, luxury hotel, caption, "Found my forever," all while my life was falling apart. I wish I could say I turned my pain into motivation instantly, but no. I spiraled. Hard. My startup crashed. Investors pulled out after an early prototype failed. My apartment? Gone. Couldn't afford the lease anymore. My self-respect in shambles. I ended up crashing at my friend Luke's place, job hunting for anything that could pay the bills while watching Bianca's perfect new life unfold online. Lavish vacations, high-end dinners, gifts that cost more than my net worth. Every post felt like a middle finger. And the worst part? Her family was right. I had nothing to show for all my hard work. I had wasted years chasing a dream that led nowhere, while Adrian, in his tailored suits and six-figure salary, had everything handed to him. I hit my lowest point when I ran into Bianca and Adrian at a cafe. I was picking up an Uber Eats order, because that's where I was now, delivering food to survive. They were laughing, holding hands, dressed like they had walked out of a luxury ad. She saw me, paused, smiled politely like I was some sad stranger she used to know. That moment broke something in me. That was the last day I allowed myself to be a joke. I cut off everything. Social media, distractions, excuses. I went into full rebuild mode. I slept 4 hours a night, worked 2 jobs, and spent every spare second on rebuilding my startup from scratch. The difference this time? I got smarter. No more chasing investors. I learned to bootstrap and build something real before asking for money. No more trusting easily. I kept my circle small and worked in silence. No more wasting time. I cut out distractions, ditched friends who just wanted to complain about life, and focused on results. For the next 2 years, I disappeared from Bianca's world. While she was playing housewife to Adrian, I was grinding harder than I ever had in my life. And then, everything changed. One day, my startup finally hit the right market. A viral moment. A big client. Suddenly, I wasn't struggling. I was scaling. And just like that, my company, the one they all laughed at, was suddenly in direct competition with firms like Adrian's. And he was about to find out the hard way. 2 years. That's how long it took. 2 years of grinding in complete silence, of working insane hours, of pushing through every setback. There were plenty. Times I nearly gave up, times when I thought maybe Bianca and her family had been right about me. But I kept going. And then, suddenly, things started clicking into place. My startup wasn't just surviving, it was scaling fast. I had landed a major client, one that put us on the map. That led to more contracts, more investors, more recognition in the industry. Within months, we were expanding globally. But the real twist of fate? Our biggest market disruption was in financial law tech, the same industry Adrian worked in. That meant my company was directly threatening his firm's future, and he had no idea who was behind it. The first time I ran into Bianca again, it was completely unplanned. I was at an exclusive industry event, not as a guest, but as a featured speaker. A year ago, I couldn't even afford the entry ticket. Now, I was one of the main attractions. As I finished my talk, shaking hands with investors and executives, I spotted Bianca's parents. They looked different, less smug, less dismissive. They recognized me instantly. Her mother's eyes widened in shock. Her father, who had once mocked me at his dinner table, just gave me a slow nod, like he suddenly respected me. Then I saw Bianca. She was standing off to the side, frozen, staring at me like she had seen a ghost. She didn't approach me. I didn't approach her. But I saw the way her expression changed, from shock to realization to something else, something that looked a lot like regret. From that night on, things only got worse for Bianca. Her relationship with Adrian was already crumbling. I later heard from mutual friends that he was exactly what I expected, a cold, image-obsessed, controlling man who treated her like an accessory. At first, she had loved the glamorous life, the luxury trips, the fancy dinners. But after the honeymoon phase ended, reality hit hard. Adrian was never home. He controlled the money, making sure she never had access to anything independently. He dictated how she dressed, how she spoke in public, who she associated with. And worst of all, her parents sided with him. She wasn't the prize anymore. Adrian was. Bianca had given up everything for security, and now she was miserable. A few months later, I got an invitation. Bianca's father personally reached out to invite me to a private business gathering, one of those elite networking events where powerful people shake hands behind closed doors. A few years ago, they would have laughed at the idea of inviting me. Now, they wanted me in the room. I accepted, not because I wanted their approval, but because I knew exactly why I was being invited. I was winning, and they wanted a piece of it. When I arrived at the event, I saw Bianca and Adrian standing together. Adrian looked different, stressed. His firm had been struggling, and I knew why. My company had taken a huge chunk of their clientele. He probably didn't even know I was the reason yet, but Bianca, she knew. The moment our eyes met, I saw it. The same expression she had at the last event. Only this time, it was worse. It was undeniable regret. A week after the event, she reached out. I had deleted her number long ago, but her message still came through. "Hey, it's been a while. I was wondering if we could catch up sometime? Just talk." I ignored it. A day later, she tried again. "I know things ended badly, but I've been thinking a lot. I miss our conversations." I ignored that too. But then she made a desperate move. She showed up at my office. It was late. My team had already left, and I was finishing up emails when the receptionist buzzed me. "There's a woman here asking to see you. She says it's important." I didn't need to ask who. I debated sending her away. But then I realized this was my moment, so I let her in. She walked in hesitantly, her confidence completely shattered. Gone was the smug, entitled girl who once told me I wasn't in her league. Now, she looked nervous. "Hey," she said softly, giving me a sad smile. "It's been a while." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, silent, watching. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "I was wrong," she admitted, "about everything. I listened to my family and I threw away something real for something fake. She bit her lip, searching my face for any reaction. I miss you, she whispered. I miss us. I tilted my head. Us? She nodded quickly. Hope flickered in her eyes. I know I hurt you, but maybe we could start over? I stared at her for a long moment. Then I laughed. Not angrily, not bitterly, just amused. Start over, I repeated, shaking my head. Bianca, we ended the day you chose them over me. She winced, but I wasn't done. You didn't want me when I was broke. You didn't believe in me when I was struggling. But now that I've made it, now you want back in? Her face fell. I stood up, buttoning my suit jacket. Bianca, I don't think about you. I don't miss you. And I sure as hell don't need you. And then for the final nail in the coffin, the office door opened. My girlfriend walked in. A gorgeous, high-status woman who eclipsed Bianca in every possible way. Bianca's face drained of color. I turned to my girlfriend, giving her a warm smile before looking back at Bianca. You see, I did find someone in my league, I said. Turns out, it just wasn't you. And with that, I walked Bianca to the door and shut it. Bianca leaving my office that night wasn't the end of things. It was just the beginning. I thought she would get the message and move on, but no. That regret, it wasn't just about me. It was about her entire life falling apart. And the worst part, she wasn't the only one feeling it. Word started spreading that his firm was in serious trouble. Turns out my company's AI-powered legal tech had been scooping up clients at a terrifying rate. Faster service, cheaper fees, more efficiency. Adrian's firm was bleeding money trying to compete. The old ways weren't working anymore, and instead of adapting, the partners were panicking. I heard from mutual contacts that Adrian was losing it behind closed doors. He was working 80-plus-hour weeks, desperately trying to retain their top clients. He was berating his junior associates, lashing out at staff. Investors were pulling funding, seeing his firm as an outdated dinosaur in a market they no longer controlled. And the final twist of the knife? Adrian still hadn't put two and two together. He didn't know I was the one behind the company ruining his career, yet. While Adrian was crumbling at work, Bianca's parents were panicking too. They had spent years trashing me, treating me like some broke loser who wasn't worthy of their daughter. Now, their loser was richer, more powerful, and more respected than their entire social circle. And suddenly, they wanted to pretend the past never happened. It started with small gestures. Bianca's mother sent a polite email congratulating me on my success. Her father mentioned me in an interview, calling me one of the most promising entrepreneurs of the decade. They invited me to another business event, framing it as a networking opportunity. I ignored all of it. Then, Bianca's father called me directly. I answered out of pure curiosity. I think we should talk, son, he said, his tone warm, fatherly, like we hadn't been in an unspoken war for years. I let him ramble about business opportunities, potential partnerships, water under the bridge. Then, after a pause, he finally got to the real reason. Listen, Bianca made a mistake. I know that. We all know that. But she's been having a rough time, and I think if you two just sat down and... I hung up mid-sentence. There was no apology, no accountability, just pure self-serving damage control. That was the last time I ever picked up their calls. The moment Adrian finally realized I was behind his downfall, it was glorious. I was at a high-profile business conference, speaking on a panel about the future of AI in law. The CEO of a major firm publicly praised my company, saying, honestly, these guys are changing the game. Even some of the biggest firms are struggling to keep up, including some legacy players we all know. The camera panned to the audience, and there, in the crowd, Adrian, his face was completely drained of color. The realization hit him like a truck. I wasn't just some struggling ex of his girlfriend. I was the man destroying his career. Later that night, he snapped. A week after the conference, I got a text from a mutual contact. Bro, Adrian just lost his shtick in a meeting. You have to see this. Apparently, during a firm-wide strategy session, one of his partners brought up my company as an example of what they needed to compete with. And Adrian lost it, slamming the table, shouting at his own bosses, claiming I was nothing but a lucky fraud, insisting we would crash and burn. Except the problem, everyone else in that room, they weren't laughing with him. They were realizing what I already knew. Adrian wasn't the future. I was. Now I could have left it there. But no, I wanted to end this completely. See, I had one final move left to make. A few months later, my company was ready for its biggest acquisition yet. We were buying out a smaller but highly influential legal firm, one that happened to be a direct competitor to Adrian's firm. This wasn't just a business move, this was checkmate. Once the deal was finalized, we poached several of Adrian's top clients, and just like that, his firm collapsed. Within 6 months, Adrian's firm was forced to merge with a competitor. He was no longer a partner, no longer a boss, he was just another employee. And Bianca, she had married a man whose career was now in free fall. The same way she left me for security, she was now stuck with a man who had lost it all. And me? I had won. I ran into Bianca one last time. It was at an airport lounge, of all places. I was waiting for my flight when I noticed her sitting alone. No designer bags, no expensive jewelry. She looked tired, older. She saw me, and for a moment, I saw hope flash in her eyes. She stood up as if to walk over. I just shook my head. Then I turned around, boarded my first-class flight, and never looked back. In the end, I didn't need to destroy Bianca. She did that to herself. She had traded real love for status, and now that status was gone. Adrian, once the perfect provider, was now just another disgraced lawyer trying to stay afloat. Their once glamorous life was reduced to mediocrity. Meanwhile, I had everything I had ever worked for. My company was now a dominant force in the industry. I had real friends, a life I built from the ground up, and a relationship with someone who actually believed in me. I never responded to Bianca's final messages, never acknowledged her silent attempts to reconnect. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't ruining her life, it was simply living mine, better, happier, and without her.